Uh, hey everyone. A different Texan is in charge now. So there. I don't know that we have a name for these live streams yet. So if anyone wants to do a suggestion, but we kind of wanted to have a more casual like chat about the episodes. And more just get like a little bit more conversational than the normal Tex-Trek fare. Um, so I I thought that maybe we'll all introduce ourselves first. I'm Rachel, a different, like I said, a different Texan. Um, and what about all of you?
Hey, I'm Braxton. I am a Marylander.
I'm Ken. I'm also a Marylander. So
Okay, I didn't realize you were a Marylander.
no, I think this is brand new. I didn't realize you were either. You might be right in the next house. We don't even know.
Oh, we're discovering things. I love that.
Yeah. Wow.
And I'm Stanley. I'm in Los Angeles.
Nice. It'd be great if like all three of you turned out to be a Maryland.
If only we had Trev here. Trev is a Marylander.
Oh.
Well, he lives in California now, but he's from Maryland.
So I think I would just start off by I was putting fathers. If anyone like does know a good name idea, let us know. I think I'll just start with what did everyone have a chance to watch the new episode? I think your cat was saying yes too.
Oh, Ahsoka absolutely loved it.
That's good.
Of course it's like highly anticipated. I could hardly sleep last night. Like I was up at like 4:30, and I just like laid in bed for like 45 more minutes, and I was like, you know what, dude, I'm just gonna like get up and go, dude. I'm just gonna like get up and watch it, and I absolutely loved it. It was I thought that it was a really fun episode. I laughed a few times. Like I had some big smiles. Season two is off to a great start. Like I loved that. We got to see some of the secondary characters in season one, like to see Dr. Mbanga and Nurse Chapel, to get like all that team building was super cool. Great episode.
Yeah, I agree. I like thought it was really solid. I thought it was like a really fun adventure to start the season off with. It's it was because it wasn't exactly what I expected from like a first episode of the season. For a couple reasons, but I like really enjoyed it and kind of like, oh, I'm glad it wasn't exactly what I expected. What about the rest of you?
So everyone who knows me knows that I'm an original series fan, and so I going to temper my comments a little bit because I put a couple tweets out there trying not to spoil stuff. As an original series fan, I have to take certain things with a grain of salt. Overall, I thought the episode was very good, but it's the kind of thing where I kind of have to ignore the original series to really enjoy it really a lot. So I thought it was a brave thing for them to do, to basically sideline two of their headliners, just in the tease, and then go with the basically making it a very strong Spock episode, reintroducing the Klingons, and really focusing on the secondary characters. I thought it's a beautiful show. The effects are fantastic. The sound design is fantastic. The cast is really strong. Carol Kane took it as she does with everything that she's in. She basically owned this, and she's going to already be a new breakout star. It's like when you look at the Picard season 3 and you saw Captain Shaw in episode 1 and you said, oh, he's going to be like this huge breakout star right then and there. Carol Kane is just going to be the breakout star of season 2. So overall, I thought it was really good. But again, I have to sort of put the original series on the shelf to say that.
Yeah, I loved it. It was super fun from start to finish. Oddly enough, because I am not a TOS evangelist myself, I share those concerns, not with certain character developments, but some character interactions. I agree. I also thought it was a beautiful show. I love seeing the different ships in space dock. I think I saw an NX class or a variant there, and a 23rd century version of a California class. At least it looked that way. The two ships on either side of the Enterprise, in addition to that Archer class right next to it. I thought it was interesting that there were Section 31 drones floating all around, rather dangerously, I might add. But aside from those tiny little nitpicks that, of course, I'm always going to have, it was super fun. And yeah, my favorite part was definitely Carol Kane. I loved her weird accent. It makes sense to me knowing what little we know about her. Like, she's been on the planet for hundreds of years. The only thing that doesn't make sense about this episode is we have yet another race that seems fascinated by humans. I don't get it, honestly. The Vulcans were here. Yeah, the Vulcans were here, the Elorians were here, and now the Lanthanites. And like, I don't see the appeal, to be honest. But I love this episode from start to finish. Super fun. Got some new stuff. My complaint in season 1, nearly every episode, was where's Una? This episode, it made total sense. I thought it was kind of cool that they didn't like get us right into that episode. I like that they're leading us there.
Yeah, I like that. I know you mentioned the Sideliners. I kept like I didn't expect Captain Pike to come like save them, but I kept like, oh yeah, he's gonna come at the end of the episode and be like, what happened? And I was like, oh, Anson Mount's just not in the rest of this episode. Interesting. I wasn't mad about it because I enjoyed everything, but I was like, that's fascinating that like how little he's in this episode. Just from like storytelling of like how I know like TV shows working, it was like almost I was like I wondered like in my brain I was like I wondered if they were like filming the like other stuff with him and Rebecca Romaine like while they were also filming this with the rest of the cast.
I mean, it's possible they've done that before, like with the Next Generation. The episode where they did that was the two-parter with Spock Unification, where they basically had things doubled up. But I don't think I would be surprised if they did that in this one. I think what they were trying to do here was they were trying to get away from the concept that this is Anson Mount's show, and sort of showcasing the the ensembleness.
Yeah, and I feel like Star Trek is always best when it like is an ensemble and it's not just like, hey, look at the captain.
Well, yeah, there's always like a good, strong lead, but the other players are allowed to shine for sure.
And I feel like you could see the growth in the actors this season. To me, Ethan Peck, just seemed to have a better grasp of the character.
I think I think they could tell like, oh, they've known each other for longer now. They have like really good chemistry. I think someone. Jill was mentioning,
and I don't know how she did it, but the young lady who plays Nurse Chapel got even more pretty between like
I was like,
oh my god, like look at her, like how does she look?
There was a moment where I was a little jealous about how she looked. I was like, wait,
so gorgeous, like Jess Bush,
This is probably not a thought you had. There was one shot, and I was like, oh, I wonder what lipstick she's wearing. It's really pretty.
And Jill is right. Chapel and Mbenga have great chemistry. He's like, oh, we've been through worse, and she's like, ooh, no, we haven't. I love that.
They were really good at like implying a history they have together without like sitting there and like info dumping about a history.
Yeah.
And it's always good. Like Star Trek has always had really good friendships, and I'm like, oh, another one. Like, yay.
So again, this is the kind of thing where, and I'm going to probably say this a lot, you have to put the original series on the shelf because there were scenes with Chapel and Mbenga in the original series which don't make sense now if you look at this. So yeah, I think that the dynamic that they're building, I do think that that whole fight scene on the super serum was a little bit too long and a little bit too crazy. But
I
still.
enjoyed it, but I was like, this is taking longer than I thought it would. I was like, good for you guys, but let's just go out.
Yeah, I do appreciate the sort of retconning of these two characters that we're getting. I'm not loving the Chapel and Spock of it all. Like it's getting way too much even for me, but I do love
kind of enjoying it, but it's confusing me. I'm a romance reader, so I was like, part of me is digging it, and but part of me is like, I'm confused about because later.
Yeah.
And
yeah,
I think I'm always more like every time they introduce something to Chapel that is not her relationship with Spock, because that is the only thing for a lot of the original series she has going on. I'm always like pro that.
Yeah, I just never loved how they played Nurse Chapel for laughs in the like, oh, she has this cute little crush on Spock. She's making him soup. He's throwing it in her face. Like, I Majel deserved better. The character deserved better, and I'm glad that that's happening. It's one of those things where, like, sometimes my complaint about the newer shows is that they're not leaning into new, and that we're getting too much of past Trek touches. But here we're getting very new stuff. We're learning more about their backstory, how they know each other, and for me, like, I kind of get it because I would not like it if they were contradicting canon in shows that I liked more. So I get the frustration.
No, I do get that. That's which is why I'm like half and half on the romance aspects of it, because I'm like, but wait, I've seen like Spock does not like although maybe like you're supposed to be implying that like, oh, Spock has been like trying to like all the original series, he's like trying to just keep everything at bay with her. I put this going up because they didn't name the drug, right?
That they did not name the drug. No.
Okay, because
the super soldier serum from Hydra.
I was like kind of looking up. I had one of those moments. I was like, I should know what they're talking about, right? Like,
yeah, they didn't. And you know, if we can talk for just a second, like, I agree that the original series did not play the women characters well, in particular Nurse Chapel. And so I completely understand and agree with the way that they are now focusing on these characters, Chapel and Uhura in particular, from the original series, and making them better characters. I do not agree with giving Uhura a tragic backstory, but that's a whole other conversation. But I do agree with what they're doing with these characters and making them stronger and making them front and center and making them multidimensional, which is simply what they did not do in the 60s, right? So I think that that's great. I think you can do it without really punching gigantic holes in canon, in particular with Spock and Chapel. You know, Chapel is supposed to have gone onto the Enterprise to find Roger Corby. And I think that you could have still done that, and maybe they will still do that. You know, she's not a Starfleet officer in Strange New Worlds. She's not a commissioned officer. She's a non-com, that is canon going into the original series, because she decides to join Starfleet and become a member of the Enterprise officially after the incidents on What a Little Girl's Made Of. But there are arguments that the way that, like I said, the way they treat the women in the original series, they're undoing that, and that I completely agree with. But yeah, I think that they could do it in a way that doesn't pull it apart.
I feel like they are still going to do Roger Corby. This is just me guessing on things from like how, like, me reading a lot of like, stuff with romance in it, that I was like, oh, they're gonna like. I was like, I feel like it's gonna end up with like a love triangle thing with Roger Corby and Spock, which is not maybe my favorite romance, but I still feel like they're going to bring that back in to like connect that.
They might, you know, but that's not. Again, I'm going to sound like a broken record. That's not the biggest canon breaker that we have here. The biggest canon breaker we have here is the Gorn, but we could talk about that some other time.
See, I don't know that that's going to end up being true, but I agree. It seems that way now. I think I'm remembering, and Trev reminded me of this earlier today. There was that line last season about how the Gorn take on different characteristics based on where they're gestating. And he noted it's very interesting that the Gorn that we're seeing in Strange New World, they've gestated in humans. So the violent nature that they have there versus what we saw in Arena, I think is an interesting tell about humans.
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah.
Their commentary on humans.
And I see Sohail's comments, the precious canon. I completely appreciate, Sohail, where you're coming from with canon and all of that. And I know you and I are probably a little bit at odds with this, and maybe I'm holding canon too precious in some respects. I totally get it. And
I do also respect that keeping track of 60 years of canon
is hard.
Is like,
yes,
I would hate it. Like I would like it.
No, I agree, but I would say that this is supposed to be an entire gigantic galaxy, right? So why do they have to bring up the Gorn? Why could it have not been an entirely other species, right? They could have completely done that. The reason that you bring the Gorn into this, a known commodity in the Star Trek universe, in theory, is to honor that known commodity in the Star Trek universe. If you're going to take it an entirely different way, come up with a different species, come up with a different villain.
I could see like wanting to use the Gorn just because despite how popular the Gorn are in like fandom, they haven't actually been used that much. So I see like them wanting to be like, oh, there's this thing everyone loves, but we just like haven't used.
And they were also on Enterprise, and very different from the original series. They were closer to what we've seen in Strange New Worlds. So that introduction or reintroduction has been there for a while.
Yes, Enterprise did it first in this case with the Gorn. I completely agree with that. That's right.
I noticed there was a comment I noticed earlier that I'm just because does that like the way they were talking about this lawyer, I thought it would be a legacy character, but then I couldn't think of what it would be.
There are a couple of original series legacy lawyers. They did say the gender was she. So it's not going to be Samuel Cogley, which I think would be awesome if it was Samuel Cogley from Court Martial. But
Ken, do you avoid clips?
What's that?
Are you one of the ones who avoids clips? Because we've seen a clip of her.
Yeah, I haven't seen a clip of her.
Oh, I have just been really busy, so maybe I just like it just went over my head.
Well, I know some people don't like to see anything. Like I've been one of the ones who's like these screeners that go out to every blog in the universe. I get it, but some of the Slackjaw rant StarTrekNews.biz MySpaces of the world with their spoilery tweets really frustrating.
Yeah.
Here, I'll say this. I don't get screeners, but occasionally, I just use it to get ahead on like doing stuff. I don't tweet anything about.
I'm not
it's
commenting on anybody here for sure.
But it's just like odd to me. The people, I was like, keep it to yourself. Like, I can't watch it yet. Like, keep it to yourself.
Yeah, the only other, no, I don't know, but the only other lawyer from the original series that I could think of would be Ariel Shaw, also from Court Martial. And so, and an old flame of Captain Kirk's. So, but I don't know if it's going to be her either. And it sounds like they've said in various spoilers who it's going to be. But those are the only two lawyers that I could think of from a Court Martial episode. And next week is definitely a Court Martial episode. So
that would be, the way, I think either of those are like, or I think she's like a good guess. Just because the way they were talking about her, I was like, I feel like I'm expecting a legacy character, but. And Jill said apparently Akiva Goldsman said that we would see Roger Corby soon. So that.
Yes, I heard that as well.
But
the question is, will we see him as an android or not?
I assume no. So maybe for the first time we'll actually see Roger Corby.
Yeah, probably.
As Michael's 100 million people died in the Klingon War, but the only battle we saw was Disco Episode 1. Did we miss the entire war when Lorca took Disco to the Mirror Universe? I was gonna say I don't think Discovery was at every battle, so I don't think we saw every battle.
They were
during that
purposely
season.
not because they
Yeah.
didn't want to lose that spore drive. They
Yeah.
were, and that's
And I
what was
do,
pissing off Lorca.
I do think they missed a large portion of the war.
6
Yeah,
months.
when they jumped
Yeah.
to the Mirror Universe and back, there was a time skip, right? When they
Mhm.
jumped back from the Mirror Universe, and I think a lot of the war happened during
Well,
that
also
time
they
skip.
come back and like the Earth's space dock is gone, or like it has like a Klingon thing on it, and they assume they're like you died months ago, like.
Right. I also thought it was weird that they had the Enterprise. Again, I understand why, but they had the Enterprise off on a 5-year mission away from the war. But anyway, I get why they did it, but it seemed a little bit of a weird thing to do.
It reminds me of every time Supergirl, Superman's off world because we can't keep
Right.
justifying why Superman's not coming
Right.
to help his cousin.
It's plot armor, right? Like, or even in today's episode, this system is like 5 minutes away. Every system that we're going to visit is going to be as close to Earth as the episode allots.
Exactly. Yeah. Which, by the way, I was rewatching Picard just as a point on this, and if you recall, I didn't recall, so I rewatched it, where they were able to get to that nebula system overnight while Shaw was sleeping, and then in the third episode, they're like, "We're stuck days and days away from anybody coming to help us." And like, you got here like overnight. But yeah, you're right. It's
I
basically
think
plot.
my assumption was no one knew they were there, so it would take someone a second to figure out where they had gone.
Yeah. Anyway, but yes, the distance is the need of the plot.
Yeah, that's pretty consistent with canon.
Yeah, that
like,
is consistent with canon across 60 years. That's
yeah.
correct.
It's just like how long does it take to get there? I don't know. However long it needs to take to get there. Can it actually rain blood? I don't know. Maybe alien planets work differently. I hope not.
Yeah, I thought he was speaking metaphorically.
Yeah, I think he was speaking metaphorically too. Plus, according to Star Trek VI, The Undiscovered Country, it wouldn't necessarily rain red, it would rain Pepto-Bismol color.
Yep.
So.
Well,
Another thing being retconned by new Trek.
I also feel like Klingons speak like that. It's like, oh yeah, like there was so much blood in the air, like the rain, the blood.
There's
like,
a reason they have that
like
line
that.
where they think Shakespeare is like originally Klingon. They're like, yes, this is how we talk. Like
It's Klingon opera about raining blood.
Exactly.
Oh, there's definitely a Klingon opera about whatever battle they were talking about.
Yeah, the blood rain of Kronos.
Let me say, though, that I was glad to see that the Klingons in this episode were closer to the Next Generation style Klingons than the Discovery style Klingons.
This is my hot take on the Discovery Klingons. I feel like once they have hair, they don't look that different to me.
Yeah,
from like the TNG ones. They just look weird, a little oddballed.
One thing that I liked about season 2 Discovery was, yes, the hair came back, but also we saw different pigments in Klingons finally. Not just white people in blackface, but
you're not wrong.
In today's episode, I thought the Klingon captain was fantastic, but he kind of looked like a Klingon Goldar to me. If there are any Power Rangers fans in the chat, and like
I didn't think that, but now that you said it,
I dare you to see anything else.
Oh no! I thought that actor was really good. I was like, oh, this feels like a Klingon captain in the best way.
And it's gonna sound like a read. I don't mean it this way, but his forehead, it looked very much like he was wearing a costume baseball cap.
Yeah, the makeup for the Klingons, I don't know if they were trying to find a way to sort of walk a line between the original series Klingons and the Next Generation Klingons, so the makeup looked a little bit wonky and weird.
Yeah,
but it did look a little wonky and weird. But
I like that it was varied, though. The woman that we saw, I wish we saw more of her wearing that like very Kalar dress. I loved her, and the the first Klingon that was talking with La'an about setting up the meeting, like they looked really cool. And so I thought he looked a little cheesy, but I do like that we're seeing like it's not just the same kind of forehead and the same pigment. We're seeing a varied race, just like we would on different planets.
And I know just stuff I've heard like Michael Dorn say. I wonder if they're trying to experiment with makeup that maybe doesn't look as like, maybe looks a little different, but it's better for the actor's skin.
Mm-hmm. Maybe.
Because apparently Michael Dorn was breaking out for most of TNG.
Right.
Like under his makeup. And I was like, that makes sense. And he said, like, at some point, they were just gluing it to me. And I was like, that's not good.
Thinking of that, I feel like Worf's Klingon makeup was better than the guys that we saw in Strange New Worlds. Yeah. But then I was also thinking that maybe they were going for like a throwback Klingons that like we've seen before. You know, like I mean, I saw them. I was like, oh wow, like look at them, like introducing us to Klingons like right away. And I thought that they looked great. Like, they don't look like as realistic as as a Worf and Picard, but I appreciated it.
I know this is a joke with like the original series and then like what we see on Enterprise, where it's like maybe some of the Klingons were putting like prosthetic ridges on to hide the fact that they were the ones who had lost their ridges. So maybe that's all the ones that look wonky. It's because it's plastic surgery.
I love it.
I mean, it is.
They're noting it in the chat too.
Yeah, bring up the plastic.
We need to see some smooth forehead Klingons for canon to be satisfied.
I want like. Part of me wants that, and part of me remembers how much closer to blackface those look like. And I was like, maybe we need a good like middle ground of that. Like,
right. And again, I think the Klingons, like Sohail was saying, the Klingons are wrong if we go by canon. They're not entirely wrong given what happened on Enterprise. Yeah. Right. So that's not true necessarily.
Klingons have. There's a million different looks for Klingons, and it's hard to like. And it's like Enterprise we tried to fix it, and they're like, "Thanks, I don't know how that worked."
Well, you also have to remember Deep Space Nine, right?
Yeah,
they are Klingons, and it is a long story.
We don't talk about it with outsiders,
right? So that was a great way to do it on Deep Space Nine. And so anyway, I don't think these Klingons break canon. But again, I think there's a lot of stretching of canon going on.
I do know that Deep Space Nine episode, there was you could tell there was a like discerted effort to be like, let's not have Worf in any of the shots with the other Klingons.
Yes, Jill is right. We need to see all of the different looks hanging out together and then just move the hell on. Kind of like the faces on this screen and humans in general. Like I'm not a scientist, but I would imagine that the forehead ridges would come back sooner for some Klingons than others. Like Kor and Kang, they don't have them yet, but these other ones probably do.
And they do get them later.
Like I want to say this is the first season of Picard. They make a reference to the Romulans. I was like, oh, why did some Romulans not have like the nose thing going on? And one was like, oh, he's from the north. And I was like, what an easy explanation. Just there's different variations of these aliens depending on where on the planet they're from, like Earth.
Yeah, Bajoran's nose ridges look different.
Yeah,
whether you're on the Enterprise or Deep Space Nine.
Right.
That is a good point, Michael. It seemed a lot of them would have had more weapons because they're Klingons.
I loved this anti-capitalist subtext of this episode, like the capitalism driving people to work together for evil. Chef's kiss. Like, oh, the Klingons and humans will come together for profit. Okay, cool.
it's funny, they're like Prophet. And I was like, I know Ferengi aren't going to show up, but that's what I was like thinking. Anytime anyone says the word Prophet in general, I think Ferengi, especially if I'm watching anything Star Trek related. I think Sohail, you might be right. The Klingons have a much different idea about genetic manipulation than humans do.
Yeah, I think that's probably true, and I think we're going to have a lot more about genetics. We certainly are going to have a lot more about genetic manipulation in this season, for
Oh,
sure.
definitely. Actually, Joseph, good point. Like depending on like Tyler and Vogue, obviously, like they're good at like that surgery.
Right.
And I can't think of his name right now. In Trouble with Tribbles, the Klingon that's hiding as a human.
And Trials and Tribulations.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I said the Deep Space.
Yeah, it is. I don't remember either. Look at that.
Yeah.
Getting old.
Darwin? Something with a D?
It's Darwin, yeah.
Yeah, Darwin.
I think.
You could tell like my high pitch.
Darwin.
I definitely wasn't positive about what I was saying.
Yeah.
I really one thing I think I mentioned this earlier. I really liked how the cast, you could tell like the cast is getting to know each other better. I liked little moment of like Uhura being like talking about her promotion, be like, yeah, you leave, you miss stuff. Was like such a good like, I was like, oh, that's a fun character beat when you're like, yeah, these people like each other.
Her short impression of Pike was really funny too.
That was good.
Like her head tilt when she said "hit it."
Mm-hmm. I liked where it was like you could tell what she was going for, but she wasn't going like full on impersonation.
Right. Yeah. So Arn Darvin was the character in Trouble with Tribbles, but then there was the guy who was who was a Klingon in Trials and Tribulations too.
Yeah, I think
who was a human.
They're the same person, right? Mm-hmm. It's just him later.
Darvin, yeah.
Right.
What other anything else in the episode that you guys?
Well, so I thought it was interesting. At first, I thought, okay, stealing the Enterprise.
Mm-hmm.
So stealing the Enterprise, my first thought was Star Trek 3, The Search for Spock, stealing the Enterprise. But Spock stole the Enterprise for Captain Pike.
Yep.
In the menagerie, right? So it was interesting to see that, Spock has a penchant for stealing the Enterprise.
At this point, they should stop naming ships the Enterprise because people are going to steal them. Mm-hmm. Like,
well, April did tell him the next time that if he does it again, like the consequences are going to be severe. So I guess if he does it for Pike, then
Mm-hmm. I just find it interesting. In this episode, he involves everyone, and so the next time he does it, he involves no one. He's like, nope, no one will be involved. I'm not going to get anybody else in trouble.
Yeah, that's a really good insight, because something that I liked about this episode was, well, let me backtrack. One of my minor frustrations last season was this is strange new worlds, right? But we got so much of Spock. I love Spock, but we already know so much about him. Mm-hmm. This episode, I thought, was a fantastic fill-in of his backstory. We see he's not as mature yet. We see some shenanigans. And like you just noted, in the future, he's like, I'm not going to put other people at risk. Mm-hmm. In this episode, he's not sure of himself. He's very nervous. He needs his crew. It puts the menagerie in a different light for me. It's like his confidence in I'm going to take this ship and help my friend, versus this one, like, we have a friend who's in trouble. We all need to come together to do it. Is really, I thought they did it really well.
What I find interesting is there's at least one. I'm trying to think who is in the episode of the menagerie of the like surrounding cast. Like, he doesn't involve, like, Uhura helped him this time. He probably could have counted on Uhura if he had wanted to in the menagerie. I
was just thinking about that. I don't think Uhura is in the menagerie.
Is she? It's been a while since I watched it, and it's one of I sometimes have a hard time keeping track of what background original series characters are in which episodes, because
it was really early on.
Yeah. Especially early on because they they release them in such an odd order that
Yeah.
it's hard to keep track of who is who.
Right.
Oh,
and
that's
Bill's
right.
The
Death penalty.
Yeah,
death
that
penalty,
is
right.
that is also a really good point.
Right.
And it, yeah, because of the Eric order of the first season of the original series, sometimes I'm like, what characters are in what episode? I'm like, I'm not sure. I'll be honest. Like, there's someone on TikTok I follow that's watching all of Star. He has a series where he watched like all of things that have a lot of episodes for the first time, and he just started Star Trek.
Oof.
And it's funny because sometimes he'll just have insights, and he'll be like, why does this character keep coming and going? And so it's like George Takei was filming something. He's like, oh, there's an actual reason. Okay,
Mhm.
cool. Like, oh no, Jill, you're saying that's why I remember Ahura being in the menagerie.
Oh, that's right.
Oh, speaking of Ahura, I wasn't expecting the little like for tribute to Nichelle Nichols
Tribute.
at
That
the
was
end.
beautiful.
It
Yeah,
was
that was
really good,
beautiful.
and
Yeah.
it got me. I watched it during my lunch break today at work. During work, I was like, I have to not get emotional because I have to go back to work after this.
Has it been about 2 years since like between shoots for the show, between season 1 and season 2?
Shoots. I'm not sure.
Hmm.
It
Okay.
might have been.
Because I was thinking the girl that La'an, was trying to reunite with her parents. I was like, oh wow, like look at her, like she looks like a tween.
Yeah, I was thinking
like
she looked. To be fair, at that age, she could if she goes through a growth spurt, like
yeah, like there's a huge difference between like 9 and 11.
yeah.
So I was
It
thinking
could have.
like maybe that girl was like 10 or
Don't
something.
know how like filming with COVID went. Like
Mhm.
for oh well, like there's that last season of Stranger Things. There's a scene where Max leaves a door and ages like half a year.
Mm.
Or like she ages a year, and it's noticeable when you're a teenager, and you're like, Max is noticeably older than she was 5 minutes ago.
Oh, I was thinking when last season ended, I was like, oh wow, like how long is it gonna be before we see La'an again? And so it was great to have her back. On the first episode,
I was glad that we had her back, but I was glad it wasn't just like automatically she's back on the ship, and we're not talking about the fact she went off, which is kind of what I expected to happen.
But she did what she wanted to do, so she could come back. Like she got the girl back to her parents. Like I feel like I want La'an to come back.
I
to
do.
the show.
Because I have seen some clips. I won't say everything. I think it's gonna still be probably a couple episodes, but I'm just gonna bring this up. When they bring up Morse code, did they say Morse 2?
Mm-hmm.
Do they imply like a second version of Morse code, or is there something about Morse code I don't know? Is that a thing?
I don't know if it's a thing or not, but yeah.
It's in the future.
Right.
That's what I was like. It was like one of those. I was like, do I just not know enough about Morse code, or is like this like we're in the future thing?
Yeah, I don't know.
These comments.
Yeah, Ensign Kyle was gone. I noticed that as
sorry.
well.
I don't mean to laugh, but the transporter twinks are very different. But yes,
I remember thinking I was like, there's a similar vibe, but also a different vibe.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no, they're two different transporter twinks for sure.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's how I heard it. I was like, there's a second, which kind of makes sense that eventually maybe they need more versions of Morse code when they're going off into space.
Different alien races trying to communicate with.
Morse 2 has emoji support. They got a giggle out of me.
Chief J did seem cool. I agree.
Mhm.
They did.
Although I gotta say, on second viewing, I was like, wait a minute, you've lost contact with 2 crew members for over an hour and you didn't think to contact the acting captain?
Yeah,
Like, come on, Chief.
that was I was kind of like, maybe you should have brought that up.
Yeah, they may have been on communication silence though.
Yeah,
So,
well,
That's
fair
true.
enough. See, headcanon can fix a lot of these
Mhm.
things. I also just think this short king twink is like, I'm going to figure this out first.
Yep, absolutely. And yes, again, being the canon person that I am, it was weird that first transporter twink was named Kyle, and the character in the original series was Transporter Chief Kyle. That was a bit odd. So
To be fair, Kyle's a pretty common name.
could
In
be.
fact, this is a completely true fact.
Mhm.
There's Kyle, Texas is a couple a little bit south of here. They just had an event where they tried to get as many people named Kyle to come there to break the Guinness World Record, and they almost did it.
Mm.
This comment is also funny. Like, listen, one twink, you got another. I have said many times, my attraction to twinks will be my undoing. But like, there is a significant height difference. It's not the same costume.
Yeah,
That's what I
They're
was
like
thinking
2
too.
feet different in height.
She's off with an alien, right? In like
A nebula.
in a nebula,
yeah.
She's gas.
I don't know. So you're saying those uniforms ain't that expensive?
Those
I-
jumpsuits.
Remembering the fact that half of the people in Generations are wearing Deep Space Nine actors' costumes, so I don't know.
You know, those legacy actors are looking at all of these new uniforms and thinking, like, man, your uniform budget is insane.
I remember Marina Sirtis even saying that about like Jerry Ryan, like during Voyager. She was like, "What?" She was like, "I was wearing the same thing every day, and Jerry Ryan's just getting a new like."
She at least gets 3 different colors.
Yeah.
Yep.
How were the rank insignias? I also forgot to look.
I don't know. I have to look again. Is that what they were? Are they on the sleeves?
I think they are. Oh no. That's
Kyle Vix emerges. Jeez. And if you beam 2 twinks together, you still get a twink, I think. So
that would make sense.
Oh, I can make so many inappropriate jokes.
yeah, calm down.
This that's the correct vibe. I'm trying to think of. I was like, what else was happening in that episode?
I feel like we need to talk more about Carol Kane.
Yes.
Yeah.
This is now Star Trek Carol Kane.
Mm-hmm.
Welcome, everybody.
I agree.
Carol,
No, Jill, twink is not an insult. Happy Pride Month, everybody. Let's teach the straights. I say that with love and jest. Twink is not an insult, although it can be pejorative. Carol Kane.
she's
Carol
amazing.
Kane, not a twink. Yeah.
I love Carol Kane. I love her in everything that she's in. She was brilliant in Kimmy Schmidt. She was brilliant in
Princess Bride.
Princess Bride. Yes.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So good at Princess Bride.
She is an absolute gem, and I love her choices here. She was quoted in Variety of saying, I wanted people to not know where she's from, and it makes sense with her backstory. She's been on the planet for hundreds of years.
Yeah.
She's probably dipping around. My voice is not the same as it was 10 years ago, so I can only imagine if I live another 300, what I'll sound like. It was super fun.
It made sense because I remember hearing a little bit of her voice in like a trailer, and I'm like, oh, it's weird. I was like, she has a fairly like oddly generic like Eastern European. I was like, oh, she moved around in a lot, which makes sense for me. I moved around a lot in my childhood. I have a like fairly generic American accent. It doesn't like you can't tell where I'm from with this voice.
Yeah. And I thought it was interesting how, like, she very easily could have been an Ilorian, but they decided, no, we're going to lean into strange new worlds, finally.
Finally, right.
Yeah. And so we have a Lanthanite, a brand new race, so far as I know. And
I Googled
oh, look at that.
Yeah. Because I was like, I don't think this is a thing, but I wanted to Google it before I said it on the internet.
Yeah, I don't think it's a, unless it's sort of an extended lit universe thing, which is always possible. I don't think it's been an on-screen.
I don't think it's been on screen. I looked at a couple articles and everyone seemed to be in agreement that this was a new thing, and I was like, okay. I think I looked at like 3 of them, and I said if 3 articles like had said they had never heard of it, I decided, okay, if it is a thing, it's so obscure that no one knows what it is.
The deepest of dives.
Yeah.
I just loved her. I thought she was funny. I thought once she said over 100 years, I'm like, oh, she does feel like the wisdom of, like, I've been around. She's funny. She had this, her interactions with Spock were, I thought, especially wonderful. I thought she had a motherly vibe, but also a sultry kind of vibe. And like playing that
like in a really good way. She reminded me of like Guinan.
Well, I love the fact that they're tying her into Amanda Grayson. I thought that was very, very cool.
I really like, because Amanda's a character that I always am super fascinated by, and don't feel like we always got a lot of her. Like, I always wanted more of Amanda.
She's the new Flint. It's interesting, Joe. Yeah.
Oh, I like this theory. That she might be in the upcoming time travel episodes. I love the backstory that there is like a race that was just like living on Earth and just like, don't tell the humans. And I found it like really interesting, like, and they chose the wording that like she came out to Amanda, and like that felt like super intentional how they worded it.
No, yeah, super intentional. But they have told in Star Trek, besides the Ilorians, they've had other times in Star Trek where you've had aliens on Earth. You've had Vulcans on Earth that they established in Enterprise, Carbon Creek. While not an alien, you had Gary 7, and the Gary 7's his compatriots there that he was looking after. So there has been a history of Star Trek establishing that there are aliens on Earth. So that's an interesting, it's an interesting extension of that.
I just saw this theory, and that is like, did we ever know what Flint's race was, and why he lived so long? That would be like a good I would enjoy that as a tie-in to like say this is what he was.
I mean, they certainly can do that, but no, I don't think they ever established what race Flint was. They sort of just let that sit. So you could tie that together. And that kind of thing, again, if we're talking about that kind of stretching of canon, so to speak, that I wouldn't mind necessarily, because that would be an interesting way to sort of fit a puzzle piece in.
Yeah.
But anyway, yeah.
What was?
Oh, look at that! It's Greek to be hidden.
I saw this. Maybe that's what they were saying. I took that to mean just because like she doesn't feel like she owns the engine she's working on when she's like, at like just working at space dock.
Yeah, so my own engines, like if she's the chief engineer, just as Scotty said, they're my Byrons. Scotty didn't develop those engines, although certain aspects say that he did some of it. But I think that's what that meant, to have her own engines, her own engine room as a chief engineer.
But yeah, I loved her. I always loved like all of us, I always loved Carol Kane. And as soon as like it was when they're like, yeah, when they announced they were bringing her, I was like, I would have never thought to bring Carol Kane to Star Trek. And now that you've said it, though, I need it right now. Like,
yeah, and so she's immediately brilliant. I know people are noting it in the chat. Like I tweeted about it earlier. The look on her face when Uhura is announcing there's a leak, she's like, "The fuck there is."
Yeah, I love that. She immediately was like, No.
And it was a beautiful way that she was like floating down the corridor. She's like, I'm gonna go to the bridge and talk to some people about this because that is like, not happening.
They're all just looking at her like, why aren't you more worried? Like,
yeah, she was great. And like her, she was her calm and comical nature. She's like, oh look, the telltale. Why should I be worried? Oh, the telltale sign of a warp core breach. Nope.
I would assume either they're like this, like how Spock didn't take her class. I'd assume either there are electives or also there are more than one professor for each class.
Mm-hmm.
And so he could have taken that class with a different person.
Well, I mean, I'm gonna get real nerdy. This is the kind of thing that I love to talk about. Is like, and I'm hoping we'll see in the Academy shows. Like, how does it work? Like, I want a Star Trek West Wing. I want a Star Trek ER. Like, I want to know how different things work. And this is one of them. Like, there's one Academy that we know of, and like, it's super hard to get in. And one thing that I liked in I'm going to go all over the place for a minute, but I'm going to make I will make points. Okay. In the game that came out last week or last month, there were a whole bunch of non-commissioned officer characters, which we only see one, right? Usually, Chief O'Brien. But it would make sense if there's an academy that is very hard to get into, that there would actually be very few officers and many non-commissioned officers. And so I've been curious about how the academy works. I would imagine it's either massive, like there are tens of thousands of students graduating every year, or like several thousand students every year, or there's a non-commissioned officer corps that we just don't see enough of. And this would make sense to me. Like, not everybody needs to know all the ins and outs of engineering. You need to know enough in emergencies, right? You need basic field medication. But if you're not going into medical school, you don't need to know how to do everything.
I would assume it's a mix of that. And then I assume it's massive enough that they have to have multiple professors for like classes.
Oh yeah.
Like,
My
school that I went to had about like, I think 37,000 students when I was there. There were at least like, for a lot of classes, there were like 3 to 5 professors for like each class, that if a lot of people had to take them.
And I know in Discovery Season 2, Control notes that there were 7,000 active ships in Starfleet at the time. That's not counting star bases, security forces, all outposts, all kinds of things.
And yeah, to be fair, I think people are saying her accent is strong. I've definitely heard her accent to be much weirder in other things.
It kind of reminded me of Jodie Foster in Elysium. Like, it sounds very different, but it's very distinct. Like, Jodie Foster went very bougie, weird accent, and here she's very eccentric, weird accent.
Carol Kane, as far as I know, was born in America, but I know her like relatives are like European immigrants, so it sounded like she sounded a bit like my grandmother, who was like also a Jewish person who had to immigrate away from Europe. So I was like, that's the accent she was going for in my head.
So I just want to let you guys know that I'm going to have to sign off at the top of the hour. So
okay,
yeah,
no problem. I think we plan is to go like I think till about like 8:30 my time, and I don't remember what time zone Maryland's in, so I can't.
It's 8:54 in Maryland now.
Okay, so it's 7:54 here.
But I'll be back for the salon. So
good.
So I thought just so I take a moment to give my final thoughts. I thought it was an interesting kickoff to the season. I thought they made some very strategic choices by taking Anson Mount and Rebecca Romaine out, except for the teaser, giving the rest of the cast a chance to shine, introducing Carol Kane in a big way, reintroducing the Klingons in a big way. Again, I think the issue with the canon issues I've already sort of slammed into already. So, again, as long as I'm sort of putting TOS on the shelf in a lot of ways, I could really enjoy this a lot. And in my head canon, I would even go so far as to say, if you look at the Starfleet Museum in Star Trek Picard Season 3, and look at the Enterprise in Strange New Worlds, there's something going on there. But we could talk about that another time.
I'm interested to hear what that theory is.
Yeah, but anyway, I thought it was a very interesting kickoff. And the other thing that was exciting to me as I'm looking at this thing is going to go into the middle of August. And so during this season, I'm going to get to meet a lot of folks out at Star Trek Las Vegas while this season is going on. So that'll be
not
fun.
official yet, but I'm going to try to get out to Star Trek Las Vegas.
Yeah. So I'm going to step aside now, but I really appreciate you guys inviting me. I'm happy to look forward to talking about this week after week. I'll try not to, talk about canon all the time. I promise.
I think now Jill's mad at you for not saying the theory.
Jill, you got to stay tuned next time on an all new episode. All right. So I will.
You can.
That's
you guys
the teaser to
I can.
Yeah.
Bye.
I should be off too. I am going to the beach tomorrow morning, and I have to wash clothes and pack my bag and get all ready to go.
Have fun at the beach.
Oh, thank you. It's going to be fun. Me and some friends, we're going to Gunnison in New Jersey.
Okay, I was about to ask. I was like, where's the beach accessible from Maryland? I don't know the East Coast super well.
I mean, so Maryland has a coastline on the Atlantic coast. We have beaches, but our sand.
I totally forgot that. I do not know I moved around a lot, mostly not in the U.S. So.
Yeah, but Delaware has really good beaches too. But like Maryland, Delaware, New Jersey, like we're all like kind of like the same place, just like little East Coast states. Like it takes you like 50 minutes to travel from one to the other.
See, it takes me hours to get out of Texas. Look, I know it can take like more than a day to drive through like all of Texas.
Oh yeah, of course.
Yeah. And I will say, we have beaches in Texas. Meh. There's
really? The Gulf beaches aren't really nice?
They're okay. It doesn't help that I will say I moved around a lot. I've lived in like Guam and Hawaii. So maybe.
Yeah, I was going to say, I'm trying not to scoff in California and over here.
Yeah, maybe my judgment for beaches is too high. I do remember the one time, the California beaches, we went to California once when we were living in Hawaii, and the California beaches were nice, but because I was used to tropical Hawaii, I was like, it's too windy. Why?
And it's cold.
Yeah. Yeah, see, Fathery is with me on this. The Texas beaches are not great. I like, they're just like not necessarily taken care of very well.
Well, Mother Nature will be taking them back soon enough.
Yeah.
Oh gosh, dude.
It's your climate change warning of the episode. I also need to sign off.
Okay.
I've got to get dinner before I get ready for the
It's probably a good time to wrap up then.
I think you should stay on.
Just stay.
Or did I freeze?
Oh, everything froze. I don't know. That was. I love your like that. I should stay here and talk to myself, which is not at all terrifying.
Well, the comments.
This is true.
Yeah, just scroll back through the comments and answer questions from your own perspective.
The comments are lovely. Like Joel's hanging out, Jill's hanging out.
Oh yeah. Throw some questions for Rachel into the chat, everybody.
Okay. Yeah, I can stay around and answer questions. Yeah, if you want.
I'm totally kidding. I'm not trying to make you do it.
Oh no, I'm like, I've done TikTok lives where if I'm like don't have anyone on, it's just like, hello, it's me. I feel like I'm talking to myself. Like,
but my expectations have been met by this episode, and I am totally looking forward to next week. Like they totally gave me what I wanted.
Me too. A great episode, great start to the season.
Wait, like I'm so glad I have a job where I could it's hybrid, but I'm like I can work from home on Star Trek days and I can watch like during my lunch break and don't need to like worry about it. Because I don't know what I would do if I had to wait all day. I would be like, no.
Oh, so you watch first thing?
I usually end up watching during my lunch break.
Okay.
Because it goes out a little too late in the early morning for me to stay up to watch. And I have to start work at like 8 a.m.
Yeah.
Which is like I'm not a morning person. I can't get up at like 7 to watch. Joel, that is a really good theory.
I've wondered about this because of her reaction to Una last season. She's like what 8 generations removed from Khan, so like very little should be there unless of course augment DNA is stronger and passes down. But the fact that she was able to drink a Klingon, did she take that stimulant that they had in Deep Space Nine, or what else was going on?
It feels like it could be something where it's like some has stayed, but it's only stuff like you can hold your alcohol better. Like it's not.
That would be amazing. You're not super strong, but you can drink.
You can,
girl. You can drink.
You will not be a lightweight. I wish.
And she's thin. Maybe it's just a metabolism thing.
That's true. I don't know.
Wish it was me.
I'm a lightweight. Like I just feel like it's fairly cheap for me to get drunk. Let's just put it that way.
And on that note, I'm going to dip out and go get drunk myself. No, I'm not. I'm going to go get dinner. Thank you for having me. This was super fun, and I will see you all next week.
See you, Stan.
Yeah. Okay.
See you, Rachel. Thank you so much.
Of course.
It was so fun to chat Trek with you today.
Yeah, this has been a lot of fun. I'll be here in post weeks, and I won't be here next week. So
What are you traveling?
I am traveling.
Okay, enjoy.
For a gaming convention, so.
Oh, that sounds fun. Which event are you going to?
It's called Origins, and it's in Ohio.
Yeah, yeah. Mm-hmm. So what do you like to play? Like, I mean, do you like World of Warcraft and like Diablo and stuff?
It is a tabletop gaming convention, and I'm a big tabletop RPG player.
Heck yeah, heck yeah.
I am on a podcast where we play Mutants and Masterminds, which is a superhero-based RPG. There's my plug for my other podcast real quick. Okay, so I think we're going to wrap up while everyone's heading out. And I look forward to like talking Star Trek with everyone most weeks. Okay. I'll steal Father's line, like live long and prosper, y'all.